The family courthouse on University Avenue smelled like old carpet and recycled air. Helena Farrow sat at the respondent's table with her back straight and her hands folded in her lap, the way Gloria had always told her to sit when she wanted the room to underestimate her. Across the aisle, Adam Whitley leaned toward Kira and said something that made her laugh. A sharp, private sound that cut through the waiting silence like a coin dropped on tile. Judge Brandt adjusted his reading glasses. The dissolution of marriage between Adam Whitley and Helena Whitley is hereby granted. All terms of settlement have been agreed upon and are final. Adam's lawyer smiled the way people smile when they think they've won something. Adam looked bored, which was somehow worse. Kira squeezed his arm. She was wearing the gold bracelet Adam had charged to their joint visa in February. The month he told Helena the purchase was a client gift. Helena signed the final papers without hesitation. Her signature was clean and unhurried. She had practiced exactly this moment in her head for 4 months. The court clerk collected the copies. The judge said they were free to go. Helena stood. She wore a dark charcoal blazer and straight-leg trousers, simple and composed. She looked like she was walking into a board meeting, not out of a 7-year marriage. She moved toward the exit without looking back. Not at Adam, not at Kira, not at the courtroom where she had just officially ended the worst investment she had ever made. Helena, Adam's voice came from behind her. Wait. She didn't stop. Outside, the March air off Lake Ontario was cold and bright. Helena descended the stone steps with measured confidence. Adam and Kira followed her out, their footsteps quick on the concrete. Helena, come on, Adam said, jogging to catch up. We should talk logistics. The storage unit lease, the insurance. There's still stuff to sort. She reached the sidewalk and paused. She had expected this. Kira appeared at Adam's side, her arm linked through his. Are you going to be okay? She asked. Her voice arranged into something that resembled concern. Financially, I mean. Adam mentioned you might be in a tough spot now that you're on your own. Helena looked at Kira for a long moment, then she looked at Adam. He'd cut his hair since she'd last really looked at him. His coat was new. Another visa charge, October. She'd noted it at the time and said nothing. She didn't answer either of them. A black executive SUV turned the corner onto University and pulled smoothly to the curb directly in front of her. The windows were tinted deep. The chrome on the grille caught the morning light. A driver stepped out, a woman in her 50s in a pressed charcoal suit and white gloves. Her silver hair pulled back precisely. She walked around the vehicle and opened the rear passenger door. Miss Farrow, she said with a small professional nod. Helena smiled. Thank you, Estelle. She slid into the back seat without looking behind her. Through the open door, Adam caught a glimpse of cream leather, a slim laptop case on the seat, and a man in a well-cut suit already inside, papers spread across his lap. The door closed with a soft, definitive sound. Adam stood on the courthouse steps. His mouth had stopped working. Who is that? Kira asked. He didn't answer. And the SUV pulled into traffic and disappeared east toward the financial district. Adam's phone buzzed in his coat pocket. A notification from his credit card company. Payment overdue, $3,900 balance. He had been counting on Helena to handle it like she always had. Like she always had. He stood there long after the vehicle was gone, feeling something cold settle in his chest that he could not yet name. 3 years before the divorce, Helena sat in the hospice room on the 11th floor of St. Michael's Hospital and held Gloria Prescott's hand while the late November sleet tapped against the window. Gloria was 81 years old and had built one of the first female-led software consultancies in Ontario. She had been Helena's godmother, her mentor, and the only person in Helena's life who had ever looked at her the way you look at something you recognize as rare. The shares, Gloria said. Her voice was low but exact. When you turn 35, the trust releases. That's when they're yours completely. The platform, the IP, the consulting contracts, everything I built in the last decade, it's all going to you. Helena had known about the arrangement in broad terms. She hadn't known the full number. Gloria. 14 million approximately, depending on the quarter. More if you sell. Gloria's eyes didn't leave Helena's face. But I don't want you to sell, I want you to build. Helena was quiet. Don't tell that husband of yours. Gloria's grip tightened slightly. Not yet. Adam's not. I know what Adam is. Gloria said it gently. He's a man who married you without once asking about your family, your history, what you came from. He doesn't know the Prescott name means anything because he never bothered to find out. That tells me enough. She paused to breathe. Wait, see who he really is first. Promise me. Helena promised. Gloria died at 4:17 that morning. At the funeral, Adam took 2 phone calls during the service and complained on the drive home that he'd had to cancel a hockey game. The reading of the will happened the following Tuesday in a Bay Street office with high ceilings and bookshelves that ran floor to ceiling. The estate lawyer, a quiet man named Mr. Atchison, who wore wire-rimmed glasses and spoke in sentences he had clearly considered in advance, laid out the full picture. The primary asset is a family trust and the controlling interest in Prescott Consulting Inc. and its subsidiary IP Holdings, he said. Current combined valuation, $14.2 million. Liquid assets in the trust, approximately $2.8 million. All of it transfers to you, Ms. Farrow, effective your 35th birthday. Helena's hands were steady on the armrests of the chair. She had learned steadiness from Gloria. She also left written guidance, Mr. Atchison added, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. She asked that you read it alone. Helena waited until she was in her car in the parking garage below. The letter was 1 page, handwritten on Gloria's good stationery. Build something that can't be taken from you. Software can't lie. Code either works or it doesn't. Start with what you know and grow into what you're capable of. And Helena, do not let anyone convince you that you owe them access to what you've earned. She drove home slowly. Adam was in the kitchen reheating pasta, his work bag still on the floor by the door. He looked up when she came in. How was it? Did she leave you anything? Some personal things, Helena said. Letters, her grandmother's ring. That's it. He turned back to the stove. I always figured people like Gloria had, real money somewhere. Helena went upstairs and sat on the edge of the bed. She thought about Gloria's handwriting, still sharp and decisive even at 81. She thought about Adam still looking at the pasta. She opened her laptop and started making a plan. Within 3 months of Gloria's death, Helena had hired a technology lawyer and an accountant, both under strict confidentiality agreements. She used the liquid assets from the trust to quietly restructure the inherited IP into a new entity, Farrow Digital Inc. All correspondence went to a post office box in the annex that Adam knew nothing about. She told him she'd taken on additional freelance contracts to keep busy. He didn't ask for details he never had. The inherited software platform was outdated but had a solid client base in HR management. Helena spent evenings rebuilding the architecture while Adam watched hockey and went to the gym. On weekends she visited potential office spaces and met with engineers she was considering hiring. She told Adam she was at a co-working space catching up on contracts. He said okay and went back to his phone. By the time Farrow Digital relaunched with a new interface 18 months later, Helena had 12 corporate clients and a platform valued at $11 million. The growth wasn't accidental. It was methodical. Gloria had taught her. Don't rush what you're building, while you're still figuring out the ground beneath your feet. And slowly, Helena was figuring out the ground beneath her feet. She started noticing Adam differently around the same time the company found its footing. Not dramatically, not the way she would have expected. It was small things first. He began showering immediately when he got home from work instead of sitting with her over dinner. He bought a new cologne she didn't recognize. He started going to a gym across town when there was one 4 blocks from their house. In March, she reviewed their joint visa the way she always did and found a dinner reservation at a restaurant in Yorkville she'd never been to. Then a hotel charge, a downtown hotel on King Street, on a Wednesday afternoon when Adam had told her he was stuck in a client presentation until 6. She sat with that for 2 weeks. She reviewed the previous 3 months of statements. There were 11 charges she couldn't account for. She wanted to be wrong. She went looking for the explanation that would make her wrong, and she could not find it. That was when she cried the one night she allowed herself it, sitting alone at the kitchen table at 1 in the morning with the statement spread in front of her. The specific grief of realizing you had been the only one keeping a promise. She sat with that grief for 2 hours. Then she washed her face, made tea and opened a new spreadsheet. In April, she called an investigator named Frank Delacroix. He'd been recommended by Christine O.C., the family law attorney Helena had first consulted 14 months earlier when she'd been setting up the corporate agreements for Farrow Digital. Christine had mentioned Frank casually. If you ever need him, he's good and he's discreet. Helena had written the number down, and then tried to forget she'd written it. She used it in April. Give me 2 weeks, Frank said when they met at a cafe on Bloor. He had the manner of a retired officer who had spent too many years being unsurprised. I'll find out what you need to know. He called her back in 8 days. They met at the same cafe. He slid a folder across the table and didn't say anything while she opened it. Photographs. Adam and a woman with dark blonde hair photographed at 3 separate restaurant patios. and in the parking garage of Adam's office building. The woman's name, Frank told her, was Kira Leland. She was a marketing coordinator who had joined Adam's firm the previous summer. The affair had been ongoing for approximately 9 months. Frank slid a second set of pages across the table, credit card records itemized highlighted. He spent approximately $18,000 on this relationship, Frank said. All on your joint account. Helena looked at the numbers, her handwriting, every month for 3 years on the payment records, her income covering the balance. She took the folder home. She waited until Adam left for his gym, the gym across town, and she sat at the kitchen table and read every page. Frank's contact had recovered the text messages. There was one she read 3 times. Adam to Kira, November. She has no idea. She's so focused on her little freelance projects she doesn't even notice. Kara to Adam, she'll be devastated when you leave. They always fall apart. Adam, honestly, she'll probably just throw herself into work. That's all she's ever cared about anyway. She's not exactly exciting to come home to. Helena closed the folder. She did not cry again. She felt something that was not quite anger and not quite grief, something colder and more certain than either. It felt, oddly, like clarity. She pulled up Faro Digital's current valuation on her laptop. $18.4 million. Her personal accounts, separate from the company, held $6.1 million. The sold shares from Prescott Consulting, reinvested and grown quietly over 2 years. Total personal net worth, just over $24 million. She picked up her phone and called Christine Osi. I'm ready to file, she said. I want this clean. She chose a Sunday evening in October. Adam was on the couch watching the game, a beer in hand, completely relaxed. Helena walked in and set the folder on the coffee table in front of him. He opened it, slowly. His face went pale when he reached the photographs. Helena, I can explain. Don't, she said it without heat, there's more. She walked him through the credit card records, the itemized charges highlighted in yellow. The 8 months of hotel stays and restaurant dinners and the bracelet currently on Kira's wrist. Adam went through 4 different versions of himself in the space of 5 minutes. Apologetic, defensive, wounded, and finally cruel. You can't afford this house on your own, he said. You know that, right? What do you make on those contracts? $80,000? The mortgage is $4,200 a month, Helena. I know what the mortgage is, she said. I've been paying it. We've been paying it. No, she said, we haven't. He didn't understand what she meant. He wouldn't understand until Christine's conference room. He grabbed his keys. He said things on his way to the door that she would later choose not to retain. She heard his car in the driveway. Then the street, then quiet. She called the moving company she had already pre-booked. Tomorrow morning, she confirmed. The Richmond Hill condo is ready. She packed only what was hers. Clothes, a photograph of her and Gloria taken at Faro Digital's first client dinner, her grandmother's ring, which had come to her through Gloria, and the documents that mattered. She left behind everything they had chosen together. She didn't need any of it. Christine Osi's conference room was orderly and precise. Glass table, good chairs, the kind of stillness that meant business. Adam arrived with a lawyer named Dale who looked like he'd been retained quickly and had not finished reading the file. Christine opened her portfolio. My client is seeking dissolution of marriage according to the prenuptial agreement signed in 2018. All of Miss Faro's separate assets remain hers under that agreement. Dale cleared his throat. My client believes the prenup should be reviewed. 7 years of marriage constitutes. The prenuptial agreement is valid and was signed with independent legal counsel on both sides, Christine said pleasantly. Your client in fact initiated it. He wanted protections in place in the event that Miss Faro's income outpaced his own. She slid a document across the table. His email, March 2018. Adam stared at the paper. The matrimonial home, Christine continued. My client has been solely responsible for the mortgage payments for the past 26 months. Bank records confirm this. Mr. Whitley's contributions to the household account went into a separate savings account. He was not, in practice, paying the mortgage. That's not. I watched her pay the bills. Adam's voice was rising. You watched her manage finances, Christine said. You didn't verify where the funds originated. The home is Miss Faro's separate property. You have 30 days to collect your belongings. Dale leaned over to Adam and said something quietly. Adam shook his head. The joint credit card debt, Christine continued. $18,200, documented as expenses accrued through Mr. Whitley's extramarital relationship. She slid the receipts across the table. Miss Faro has cleared this balance herself. She is seeking full reimbursement. They went through the rest of it methodically. checking accounts, retirement savings, the vehicle in his name and its outstanding loan balance. At the end, Christine offered a choice: sign today and Helena would waive the reimbursement claim, or go to court, where the violation of Adam's firm's fraternization policy, a 9-month affair with a direct subordinate, would become public record, along with his employer's HR file. Dale whispered to Adam for almost a full minute. Adam closed his eyes. He signed. His hand was not entirely steady. Faro Digital's acquisition was announced 6 months after the divorce. A Vancouver-based technology holding company valued the platform at $31 million. Helena retained a significant equity stake and her role as Chief Technology Officer. The announcement ran in the Globe and Mail's business section on a Thursday morning. Adam saw it at a coffee shop in Mississauga, where he had moved after Kira asked him to leave. 4 months in, the lease in her name, the situation resolved without ceremony. He had since found a studio apartment that cost more than he'd budgeted for. He read the article twice. His coffee went cold. He had lived with her for 7 years. She had been building a company worth $31 million, in what he had assumed were late evenings of freelance work. He put his phone face down on the table. The demotion at his firm had come 2 months after the divorce was finalized. Fraternization policy HR had been clear and unapologetic. 40% off his salary in one meeting. The woman who delivered the news had used the phrase, "You were warned about this in your initial contract," in a tone that left no room for appeal. He typed Helena's name into his laptop that night and found 17 results on the first page: interviews, a profile in a technology publication, a photograph of her at a conference in Ottawa standing at a podium looking like someone who had simply always been there. He closed the laptop. Elias Cho introduced himself to Helena at a technology summit in Ottawa in February, 8 months after the divorce. He ran a mid-sized AI infrastructure company out of Montreal and had, he said, been following Faro Digital's trajectory for 2 years. "The way you structured the data privacy architecture," he said, when they had been talking for 20 minutes, and had moved from the conference room to the quieter hallway outside it. "Most companies bolt that on at the end. You built from it." Gloria's influence, Helena said. She believed privacy was a foundation, not a feature. "Who's Gloria?" Helena told him, more than she had planned to. Elias listened in the way that Helena had almost forgotten was possible, not waiting for his turn to speak, but actually following the shape of what she was saying. They exchanged contact information. He sent her an article on sovereign cloud infrastructure the following week. She replied with a question he called. The calls ran long. She told him about the divorce eventually, not all of it but enough. He didn't press for details she hadn't offered. He said, "Own loss. I mean that directly, not as a pleasantry." Something about the plainness of it made her feel something she hadn't expected. They had dinner when he was in Toronto in March. He wore a gray sweater and no pretense. She wore a simple black dress. They talked for 2.5 hours and the restaurant reset the table around them. He was not a man who needed her to be smaller so he could feel larger. She had not known until she found it, how much she had missed that. Adam was working a hospitality shift at the Beanfield Center when Helena's company sponsored the annual Women in Technology Gala in November. He hadn't connected the two things when he took the shift. It was good money and he needed it. He recognized her from across the room and felt the floor tilt slightly beneath him. She was standing near the stage with the gala organizers, wearing an emerald blazer, her hair down, her posture the kind that isn't learned so much as arrived at. She looked like she had never doubted a room in her life. He kept to the opposite side of the hall and circulated with his tray. The keynote introduction came 20 minutes later. Helena walked onto the stage to applause that was not polite, it was actual. 14 years ago, she said into the microphone, her voice clear and unhurried, a woman named Gloria Prescott told me that what you build matters more than what you're given. She was talking about software, but she was also talking about everything else. She paused. Tonight, Faro Digital is committing $3 million to digital literacy programming for women entering the technology sector across Ontario and British Columbia. Because Gloria was right. What you build is what lasts. The room stood. Adam stood in the service corridor and held a tray and did not move. Later, during the reception, he was sent to refill water glasses at a table near the front. He was maybe 8 feet from where Helena stood with Elias beside her, the two of them talking in the easy, unhurried manner of people who have already decided to trust each other. Adam turned away before she could see him. But she had already seen him. She had noticed him an hour earlier, and she had felt nothing in particular, not satisfaction, not anger, not the complicated ache she had braced herself for. only the faint surprise of realizing it wasn't complicated at all. At the end of the evening, as the staff began clearing, Helena walked across the room toward him. He looked up when she was 3 feet away. She looked at him the way you look at someone you once knew briefly and have since returned to neutral. A service person doing their job in a room she was leaving. "Good evening," she said. She held out a folded bill. "The service was good tonight." He took it. He didn't speak. She nodded once, collected her coat from the check, and left with Elias beside her. Adam looked at the $40 in his hand. He finished his shift. He walked to his car in the parking structure, and sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. He thought about the applause that had filled the room when she walked onto the stage. He thought about the look in her eyes when she had handed him the $40. There had been no anger in it, no performance of triumph. She had looked at him the way you look at anyone, a stranger, a server, someone passing through the same room without consequence. That, he understood finally, was the whole of it. Helena arrived home to her condo, 23rd floor, north-facing windows, the city spread below in grids of gold and white, and sat on her couch in the quiet. Elias brought her tea without being asked. He had figured out somewhere over the past 8 months that this was what she wanted after events like tonight. Tea, quiet, the view. "How are you?" he asked. "Good," she said, and then, because he was someone she didn't have to perform anything for, Adam was working the event tonight. "I know," Elias said. "I noticed him in the second hour." "You didn't say anything." "You didn't need me to." She thought about that. She thought about the October evening she had sat at the kitchen table with a folder full of evidence, and felt something cold and clarifying settle into her bones. She thought about the one night she had cried alone in the kitchen, at 1 in the morning, and then washed her face and opened a new spreadsheet. She thought about Gloria, 81 years old and precise until the end. Build something that can't be taken from you. "I don't feel anything about him anymore," Helena said. "I thought I might, tonight specifically, but I just didn't." Elias set his own mug down. "Is that okay?" She considered the question seriously, the way she considered every serious question. "Yes," she said, "I think it means I'm done, not just with the marriage, done carrying it." Outside, Toronto spread itself across the dark in careful grids, a city of people building things in parallel, most of them not yet knowing what they were capable of. Helena had not been given her life. She had drafted it, rebuilt it from inherited architecture, and made it run. She had done it quietly in the evenings, while someone who should have been paying attention was looking somewhere else. He had believed she needed him. He had been the only one in the marriage who never once understood her. And sitting now in the quiet of everything she had built on her own terms, the company, the condo, this slow and honest thing with a man who actually listened, Helena realized that the word revenge had never truly entered her mind. There had only ever been the work, the plan, the long private accumulation of what she was owed. She had won. Not because Adam had lost, though he had, but because she had become, completely and without apology, someone who had forgotten he ever mattered at all.